Kia ora, good morning. So I'm making this Oracle of Delphine podcast to draw your attention to two videos that I was studying yesterday. As you know, I watch a lot of these things to do research for inspiration for podcasts and making my shows and uh, to create lessons and classes for everyone so that you can learn about the supernatural and the occult and the paranormal. Now, a lot of people are referring to these things as paranormal events, but I can promise you these videos and the stories within them is an example of 100% the supernatural. And I'm going to go into it all. So the first one is Mr. Borland. Now, I watch his videos because he has a lot of inspirational stuff in there. I've already talked about a couple of his videos on LinkedIn. I don't know, I may have put them up on Instagram. They're definitely on my old LinkedIn and possibly X, I'm pretty sure X, where he talks about the Dyatlov Pass and the hauntings in the battlefield of Afghanistan, and I was explaining to him what they were, talking about the ghosts of the Russian soldiers and, things that happened there. So I was explaining those. If you go to my old LinkedIn and my ex, I'll try to find them, but I will try to find them, and if I do, I'll put the links in the description box below. But this Mr. Borland video is about he tells three stories, one to do with a car crash, one to do with the Grim Reaper, and one to do with reincarnation. The reason why I'm putting them up, I'll put the links in the description box below, is because they are a prime example of the supernatural, not the paranormal. And I'll explain why. The first one with the car crash, apparently it's a famous quote unquote ghost photo, quote unquote paranormal photo, but it's not, it's supernatural. As I keep saying, the difference between the paranormal and the supernatural is that the paranormal is based on psychology and society, and the supernatural is based on faith and physics. And when something defies the laws of physics, when people absolutely can't explain it, and it involves God, death, your faith, your religion, anything like that, that's supernatural. And that's the bit that God loves, because he's always performing supernatural feats in order to prove that he is real, because God has to have all the attention and he likes to perform. Now, in this case, the 16-year-old boy, at the moment of impact, they were screaming, and then the cop came and took the photos, and there's a photo of him in like golden light, which is the God frequency, the creation frequency, in the shape of his face screaming. And people can't explain it and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's why I'm an occult physicist. I'm here to explain it. So these occurrences, while they do happen, because the supernatural isn't something that happens all the time like the paranormal does, because the paranormal exists in the recesses of your psychological mind, but the supernatural exists in the conscious mind. And the supernatural will always occur in a way that is unbelievable but undeniable, like you can't deny it. With the paranormal, people question it and get stumped and keep trying to study it, but with the supernatural, it like floors people, but it's undeniable. And even though you might not understand it, you will have like a rudimentary knowledge that something greater than yourself has happened, and that is supernatural. That's when you know it's the work of God, because it leaves you gobsmacked, not terrified like the paranormal, but gobsmacked. So this photo is him screaming, which is obviously his body, his soul took on that shock. Now, it was 30 years ago. He was only 16. He wouldn't have gone to purgatory or gone for judgment, because at 16, it sounds like he was fairly innocent. He died in an innocent way. He was a passenger. in the back seat, and he wasn't the cause of the crash or anything like that. But this photo apparently is quite famous. I've never seen it before, but apparently it's one that's talked about all around the world, and experts have tried to study it and blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing to understand. It is exactly what it is. It is exactly what it is. His spirit got captured at the time the police officer took the photo, but this isn't something that you can't. This isn't something that happens every time there's a car accident, every time there's a tragic death, every time. It happens sporadically because that's the supernatural. The supernatural doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you can't deny it. And the reason why it happened wasn't because he was suffering. So his family and friends and that need to know that. He was being removed from everything before his soul even got to heaven, so to speak. You get removed from your pain, you get removed from your suffering before your soul goes to the afterlife, so you don't remember it. Because if we remembered our tragic passings and that, by the time we came back to be resurrected, to reincarnation, to be reborn, we'd be a nervous wreck from like the second we were born. We'd be psychologically traumatized from birth, from the traumas of all the lives and deaths that we'd had previous to this one. So we're relieved from the burden of the grief of our passing, of our lives before, never the lessons or the karmic debts, but the pain and the suffering of our death we're completely removed from. The reason why the photo was taken where it shows him, screaming just before the impact of the car hitting the tree and all of that, is because people like him, especially young people, disabled people, they do things like that. They're here to teach us lessons, and he would have been chosen, or he chose to leave that lasting impact on the world, to teach people lessons about the truth of the afterlife, the truth of our passing, the truth of death, memento mori, all that sort of thing. They're selfless. They become martyrs for the cause, for the greater good of humanity, and that's exactly what this young boy did. And that's all it is, even though it's a simplistic answer, because often when it comes to the paranormal and the supernatural, people overskip the runway. They overanalyze, and when it comes to the supernatural, the obvious answer is always the correct answer. You must always go with logic first. When you overthink it, that's when you start believing the wrong things, and that's when you start taking on thoughts and emotions and energies and concepts and that actually weigh you down and don't release you from the burden of not knowing the truth about life and death. But I'm a high priestess, and I'm an occult scientist, an occult physicist, as I now call myself, and that's exactly why I'm here. I'm an ascension scientist. This is my field of expertise, and this is why I'm here. So that photo and one similar to it that are genuine on the internet are here to teach people the lesson of making the most of your life while you're here. MTMOTO, as me and my cousin used to say, make the most of the occasion. Memento mori. At any moment, at any given time, your life can end. So make an impact. Go out there and make an impact. That's exactly what Amber said to me when her last message to me, when she said, I'm getting ready to die, so prepare yourself. That her message was, make a lasting impact, go out there and live your life, and make an impact in the world. I believe in you, like she believed in me. She was saying, enjoy your life and live your life. And the dying, like I was just saying to my niece-in-law yesterday, when people are dying, they're at their most wise because they are sitting in the God frequency, and the stuff that they say is imparted wisdom that we in the Māori culture hold on to, because they're teaching you life lessons in the moment of their passing, and their life lessons that are supposed to be passed down from generation to generation. And trust me when I say, she taught me a lot. Her dying process and her death has completely changed my life in ways that I can't even put into words. Um, so him in that photo, he would have been doing the exact same thing. Don't fear death, understand it, and know that there's a reason for everything, and that God has a reason for doing what he does, and it's for the greater purpose of mankind, so that we no longer fear the death process, because it's in people's morbid curiosities and wanting to understand how to cheat death. They seek to understand it, which is why they walk straight into the paranormal, which is imbalanced and incorrect and leads people down the wrong path and can do harm. But when you look at it from a logical, scientific perspective, like the supernatural, which is, um, physics and faith, it's undeniable. It might be unbelievable, like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened, but it can't be denied. The supernatural can't be denied. The paranormal can absolutely be denied. The supernatural can't, because one's based in fact and one's based in fiction. So, his passing, while I know people were concerned about the expression on his face and that sort of thing, but it was literally what you're seeing in that photo is a moment in time when the atmosphere around him, when the atoms in the ionosphere in his biorhythmic parameter was at the right frequency, where it caught a snapshot in time of his soul leaving his body as it left. So the photo that you're seeing, I'll use it as the thumbnail. The photo that you're seeing is capturing the moment as his soul was leaving his body, but it lingered because atoms stick, energy sticks, gravity sticks to the particles in the atmosphere, and depending on the weight and the gravity of the situation, the density of the moment will depend on, like, when you get that feeling of sadness and sorrow and fear and dread, and it'll hit you like in your solar plexus. That's because it's a heavy weighted situation, because the gravity of the situation is dense enough that it sticks in the atmosphere, which is why you get paranormal activity, because paranormal activity is always based around events in people's lives that bring them the most pain, fear, sorrow, grief, and suffering. So that's the weight or the gravity of the situation being soaked up by the ionosphere, by the positive frequency or the positive particles in the atoms around you. And then the cops come along and taken a photo when those particles were still dealing with the gravity of the situation. Do you see what I mean? So he won't. He won't still be there. He won't still be there. So if you go to the crash site and that, you're not going to capture the same thing. He won't still be there, but they're martyrs for the cause. He's done this to teach the world a lesson, so that people like me will come across the story and say to people who can't explain it, because you're saying people, this photo has gone around the world, people have been talking about it for over 30 years because they can't figure out what happened. So then it drips down, it gets fed down eventually to me, to someone like me, and then I can go say to the world, well, I know what it is and I can explain it, which is why this has happened. I've been researching and investigating the paranormal since I was like 5-6 years old, literally, because I wanted to understand events that were happening in my family, even at 5-6 years old. So this is like my lifelong profession. Basically, this is my life. And I've never heard of this story. but I wasn't meant to, because it was meant to happen at the right time, so I could explain it. So now is the right time, which is now me making this video. So that's that. Nobody has to worry about him. He's probably already, more than likely, highly likely, as now a man or a woman who's, like, if it was over 30 years ago, be someone in the early 30s, late 20s sort of thing, living a life completely unaware um, that they're the person in that photo. You have to understand as well, he might be, if this happened 30 years ago, he might be 28, 29 years old, living in a completely different country, or just down the road from where he died, even, or from where he lived, because he was only 16. He may have even been reborn into his own family, and he could be very well looking at that photo, going, "Oh my God," and being fascinated with it, not even realizing that that was him in his past life. That's what's so cool about the supernatural. Um, that's why I love the supernatural, why I love to explain it to people, because the supernatural is so much more healing than the paranormal. The paranormal exists in a realm of darkness and fear and sorrow and more morbid curiosity, although it is part of human instinct to be fascinated with death, so we know how to avoid it. That's completely natural. But there are some people that thrive on it and can't move on from it. Um, and they're the ones who keep perpetuating the myth that the dead wander the earth and blah blah blah. He's not wandering the earth. He's not trapped. His death was caught in the atmosphere at the exact right time, so that his death could leave an impact on the rest of the world to understand the truth of what happens when we die, and how beautiful the supernatural is. He was a martyr for the cause. The second story was about a man, a doctor, who saw Grim Reaper year, saw the Grim Reaper. See, that's why Grim Reaper year in the Art of Creation is a news anchor now, because he suffered from PTSD as a field reporter, doing his job, but it got too much for him. He's quite a sensitive soul, and it got too much for him having to take souls to the afterlife. So he suffered from PTSD, so they gave him a desk job at the Ministry of Souls News Network. But this one is about a doctor who told the story of how he saw the Grim Reaper, and then he got a blood disease and died. What people need to understand about the Grim Reaper is he can be a harbinger of death, same like the Banshee and all that, like the Wailing Woman and all that sort of thing. But the Grim Reaper doesn't kill you. They can prepare you for your death, and they help remove your soul from your body, but they're not the ones that cause your death. Their scythe is used to help remove your soul from your body, to cut the cord, the invisible cord between your soul and your body, to take you either for your judgment or to the afterlife or purgatory, obviously depending on what's happened when your soul's been made on the karmic scales. But he knows exactly what to do. But the Grim Reaper doesn't cause your death. They prepare you for it and help you cross over, but they don't cause your death. They are more to do with the preparation of your soul, and have nothing to do with the preparation of your death. So don't think that the Grim Reaper is the one who takes your life. He doesn't. He's your journeyman. He's your ferryman. He takes you on your journey, but he doesn't cause it. So the Grim Reaper is absolutely, well, I was going to say nothing to fear, but because people think that he kills you, that he comes to take your life, but he doesn't. He prepares you for your death, and then walks you to the other side. He's like the guardian of your soul, and then he hands it over to your judges, your ancestors, God, whoever. The third story because all these stories of his were 100% spot on, and I was so happy because it was like, uh, it backs up everything I've been trying to say in these videos. The third one is just reincarnation. That's exactly what it is. There's no mystery to it. There's no, the thing is, the dad was a bit like, "Blah," in the beginning until he sort of leaned into it. But if James was my son, and my sons were like that, my sons did remember their past lives, and I immediately knew what it was, and I leaned into it from day dot. Um, my ex husband and I uh, encouraged them to talk about it so that we could learn more about them and the reason why they were the way they were, and as kids, and because they used to do some really weird things that didn't make sense, like hoarding food and hiding them under carpets and under furniture, and collecting recycling and storing them in the room. Like, we couldn't figure it all out until they were old enough to talk and start telling us things about past lives, and my firstborn especially. So yeah, so the Mr. Ballin, I'll put the link in the description box below. He was 100%, everything in that is real, supernatural, nothing to do with paranormal, and everything to do with supernatural. Incredible lessons, incredible stories that we should all be taking on board. Now you know what they are, because it's God's way and our ancestors' way and the Council of Elders' way of saying death isn't final. That when we die, it's not over. It's only our body that dies. Death is only biological. It's only our body that dies, and even then it goes back into the ground, and after 100 years um, regenerates as atoms inside the lives of everybody else that has been born after that 100 years. So we're all walking around with the atoms of Queen Victoria, Genghis Khan, um, Alexander the Great, Cleopatra, all of them, everyone in the Bible. Like, we've got their atoms in us. So yeah, death is only biological, but atoms recycle. The universe recycles. Everything that is atomic, biological, and organic recycles. So death isn't final, and that's what the story of James, that's what the first story, it's what it's all about. Death isn't the end of life, it's only the beginning of a brand new one. And in order for the new to begin, the old has to die. It's just that some of us die sooner than others, or in ways that aren't great. But like with the disabled people, people with disabilities, like wheelchair bound, and people in vegetative states, and like cerebral palsy and stuff like that, for example. The martyrs, the angels, and of course, the younger you die, the purer your heart, the closer you are to God. So if a baby dies, if a toddler dies, they're basically angels, but they're old souls. The younger you are when you die, the older your soul, because only the oldest souls come and live the hardest lives to learn the biggest lessons, in order to pass them on to the living after they've gone, in order to leave that impact. Like at Amber, I can't even put into words the impact that her dying and her death has left on my life. She's taught me things and made me witness and experience things that have blown my mind, and this is my life. Like, this is my bread and butter, everyday breathing, living air thing. And even she's come along and taught me things that have made me go, wow. Just when you think you've seen it all, uh, you never stop learning, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Even with all my experience and understanding in supernatural physics and the occult and all of that, even I'm still learning this stuff. Even I'm getting blown away after over 40 something years of this being my entire life. Even I'm still getting blown away by some of the things that I experience and witness now, especially since Amber crossed over. So the second video is about ghost stories from the tsunami and from the Indian Ocean. Remember, there was an earthquake, the tsunami 2014, I think it was. And it is stories of people in and around Indonesia and all of that who were haunted for weeks and years with the souls of those who drowned in the tsunami. 200,000 people died, and there's been stories after stories after stories afterwards of all sorts of quote unquote paranormal events that absolutely scared the crap out of people, to the point where they wouldn't sleep in their houses alone, they wouldn't answer their phones, the dead ringing the phone asking for help, that sort of thing. It's a prime example of trapped souls. You know how I say that ghosts aren't real, but that when it is real, they're trapped. That when a trapped soul, when it is really a dead person who is stuck between here and the afterlife, the experience you have with them will only last a fleeting moment, but when it does, it leaves an impact on you forever, like you never forget it. It defies the laws of physics. It defies the laws of understanding in every capacity. It will not make sense at all. But when you have that moment with them, it has an everlasting impact. Unfortunately, because of these people's cultural beliefs, they misunderstood everything that was going on. But they were genuinely reaching out from the afterlife, asking for help, because, as I keep saying, one of the things that bothers the dead is being forgotten after death, which is why we should always be taking care of our cemeteries and graveyards and headstones and that, because the worst thing that can happen to a person after they've died is to be forgotten to time. And when you've died in a sudden death like that, it's a shock to the system, and it leaves an impact on the soul that's so great, it imprints in the atmosphere. So they're stuck between here and the afterlife, and they're trying to reach out for help. They don't know they're dead. And if they do know they're dead, they will immediately tell you what they want, because they know that the window between life and death, that veil between life and death, is so thin, and time is so fleeting and passes so quickly, that if they don't get in and tell you exactly what they need in that moment, the opportunity passes. And it takes a lot of energy for them to be able to muster up enough to be able to come through and say to you, I need your help. They will tell you exactly what they want. They will tell you exactly what they need. They will be like concise and to the point. It's not anything like, rattling chains and, hearing the woman crying, and when you walk in, like they're, all aggressive and angry, and hearing the babies cry, and seeing something with black eyes. Like, it's not that at all. That's paranormal, or it's bullshit. But but in this case, the reason why it's genuine trapped souls, and so many of them, is because the tsunami, the earthquake, and that caused such a sudden shocking impact on the earth. These people weren't prepared for any of it, so when it happened and they died so tragically, quickly and unexpectedly, their bodies didn't have time to prepare. Grim Reaper didn't have time to prepare, because it just happened so quick. But again, it's not that he didn't know, or that God didn't know, or anything like that. It's all done to teach people lessons about respecting life, understanding death, and preparing yourselves for the afterlife. For because you never know when your time is up. But if you understand it, or if you do end up suffering a loss, with people like me explaining it to you, when it does happen, you'll know exactly what to do. You'll know exactly what it is. And the reason why that event around Indonesia, like in the from the tsunami coming from the Indian Ocean and that, like Indonesia, and that the reason why that happened is because it involved water, and water is a conduit for energy. It holds on to energy like you wouldn't believe. Um, which is why you need to be careful. You know, if these people say if you put a glass of water in your house, it soaks up the negative energy. But then what do you do with the water? And one of the things that you can do when you have what you think are like cursed items in that is put them in water with a mirror upside down, like that sort of thing. But then what do you do with the water? Because if the water's soaked up the negative energy for you in the glass, then what do you do with the water? Tip it down the drain, put it in the garden? Well, then you've put that energy down the drain and in the garden. So you have to be really careful how you deal with those sort of things, because water is a conduit. It doesn't just generate energy, it draws it in as well. And unfortunately, these people drowned, and cars were still under the water. And there's been stories of people who have been in their boats and that, and hearing the screams and cries of people whose cars were trapped under the water because they got swept under the water and that sort of thing. um, they're wanting their bodies to be found. They're restless. They want to go home. They want to be buried. They want civility in death. And so they reach out to the living to say, my name is this, I'm buried here, or hey, look, I'm under you, or, help me, so that you can bring their bodies up and give them decent burials. Because the one thing that the dead are afraid of more than anything in the world is being forgotten and left behind. We all deserve to be marked in death. We all deserve to be remembered in death because of the lessons that our lives and our passings can bring, even if it was 200 years ago, which is why we need to respect our graveyards and cemeteries and like our headstones and memorial plaques and that, because by keeping it alive, it keeps their memory alive and it continues to teach us lessons long into the future. And so incidents like this with the tsunami, these people are genuine trapped souls. And then what happened was, after the people, were absolutely terrified, and people were thinking they were cursed and all sorts of horrible things. I mean, it must have been terrifying for them because they didn't understand what was going on. But see, the thing is, if I was making shows in Indonesia, or my TV shows and radio shows reached Indonesia, I'd be able to say to them, it's this, and this is what you need to do. All they needed was for their bodies to be found or for their souls to be released, which is what happened. Buddhist monks and that came in and did big rituals and cleansings and clearings and stuff like that. But unless their bodies were found and they were given proper burials, some of the activity might still happen. But it usually goes away because it's the dead are then, well, the trapped are then happy with the fact that people have acknowledged they're there and they're helping them cross over, which is exactly what they want. They're just wanting to be released from death, from being trapped of death. They're trapped in death and they just want to be released from it so that they can cross over. Which, from the understanding of the video, like everything calmed down once the Buddhist monks and all of that came in. But that's why my shows and podcasts and that are so important. If they can reach the world, then next time, or should you have another occurrence, or should an event like that happen again, you'll know exactly what to do. They can ring you up on the phone. Like, that's the supernatural. That's what's so incredible about it. Because, phone lines, you're talking about energy, electricity and all of that, power lines. And they died by means of water. They were surrounded by water. They died in water because of water. And so it works like a AC DC current. You know, when your jumper cables, you know, when the battery runs down on your car and you have the jumper leads and, you know, you click them together and it, you know, and then you put it on the battery and it charges it up. That's basically what they do to use the phone to say help. One person even gave their name and everything, but it's what I'm saying. If you listen to the story, they're precise, they're concise, they're exact, they're to the point, they tell you exactly what they want because they're needing your help. And that's how you know it's a genuine trapped soul and not a ghost, like a quote unquote ghost or haunting sort of thing. Um, once a trapped soul, once a genuine spirit gets what it is that they're asking for, you'll never have a problem with it again because they were needing your help, and they'll keep doing it until they get the help they need. But it won't be, um, you know, people say, oh, it's every night. It was every night until like for a couple of weeks apparently, like until the monks and that came in. But you're talking about over 200,000 people died. You know, like the intensity, the gravity of that situation left such an impact in the atmosphere that it was felt for weeks, months, years after the event because of the severity of the tragedy. But because it involved water, because of the high intensity of it, it gave the trapped souls enough of an opportunity to slip through the veil in order to be able to reach out and say, I need your help. Whereas everything else you see, like The Conjuring and, you know, all these things on YouTube and that, where it's like ghostly things in the mirror that's like the doppelganger with the black eyes and the real person's moving and the ghost isn't, you know, like that. It's fake, it's bollocks, or it's misunderstood, or you've created it yourself. The supernatural is real, the paranormal is created, it's made up, it's fiction. It's all based on what you've been told to believe or what you perceive to be true. That isn't evident in truth, fact, logic, reason, doubt, and science. But that's why I'm here. So I'll put links in the description box below. The thumbnail is the photo I'm talking about. But the boy was the story with James, reincarnation. It's just such a beautiful thing. These little kids that come along and say to the world, hey, look, death isn't final. It's beautiful. I just absolutely love it. I've been fascinated with reincarnation my whole life. And fortunately for me, I'm really good at picking up on people's past lives, especially if I read their palms, because I can see their past lives in their wrists, the way my mum taught me. And the lines in your wrist will tell you how many past lives you're here to pay off the karmic debt for. So if you bend your wrist of your left hand and you see the lines under your wrist, that'll tell you how many um, past lives you're here to pay the karmic debt off for. So if you've had a really hard life and you've had a lot of crap going on in your life, where you know karmic debt, karmic retribution, that sort of thing, you will have a lot of lines in your wrist. But I can look at those lines and tell you what the karmic debt is and what you're here to pay off, so that you know what to do to fix it. And then you find that the lines start going away, and I'm not even joking. When I was locked up, I read the lines, did a ton of palm readings for the girls. I was able to tell them where the root cause of their traumas were from and all of that. I've even got like a couple of readings up where I've shown, and they were like, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." And then I show them their potential, what you could have, what could be waiting for you if you take the right steps to fix what is broken. This, you know, I show people the best possible outcome should they take the right step to heal themselves and pay off their karmic debt and heal childhood traumas and that sort of thing. This is what is waiting for you. But whether they take those steps to have the best possible outcome for their future is up to them. I just like give them the map, but they're the ones that have to put in the coordinates and, you know, follow the path sort of thing. So yeah, so links in the description box below. And I'm going to go and have another coffee now. And I'm going to read my Bible. So yeah, enjoy. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō.